I grew up in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in the country. We lived out in the country, and the influences, the great influences, was that we were on a dirt road with a forest behind the house, with a lake a couple minutes that way, and a swamp directly across from the house, and cornfields. So that was my artistic influence as a child. It was wonderful, and I loved magic. I used to play magic, but maybe the most important was radio. Because radio, we didn't have a television when I was a kid, and radio was fantastic because with radio, you've got to do all the work. You've got to make the sets, the lighting, the faces, the costume, everything. And I think that, I'm convinced that's where my visual sense developed, out of radio. And I remember the first television show that made a mark on me was a guy named Ernie Kovacs, who was this brilliant, surreal TV comedian, and just extraordinary things. Nobody, we do some research. Look up Ernie Kovacs, you know what I'm talking about, because it's too complex to try to describe. And then the next sort of leap was in college, when I was doing the college humor magazine. And I was sending him off to Harvey Kurtzman, who is the guy who began Mad Comics, and at that point was editing a magazine called Help. And I was doing things in our magazine that were similar to what he was trying to do, and he liked it, and after graduating I went to New York and became his assistant editor. It's like that. So things happened with me in jumps. The one thing through all of this that I always did was draw cartoons, ever since I was a kid, always drawing cartoons. And that always kept me going, because even working on the magazine, which there was no money, in between I would do cartoons and sell them. So that was a way of just making a living, a piece of paper and a pen. That was enough. And that was kind of it. Mad Comics was really important to me because, well, in fact, all comics were, but Mad Comics in particular was incredibly influential, because Harvey made comic books that told stories like movies told stories. He would zoom in, he would track, he would do all the things you do in film. And also, he was very good at satire and at parodies of things. Now, parody is a very interesting job, because you've got to be as good as the original to make fun of it. And he was. The work they did on that always was as good as the original work they were parodying. And that, I learned a lot from that, about detail and about texture and getting things right. If you're going to make fun of something, you've got to do it really accurately. You've got to be good. You've got to respect it in that sense. And so I think these were all really important influences. Films were just something that I went and watched because they were fun. I didn't think about them as, they were like wallpaper. I love movies. But somewhere along the line, the bug got me and I wanted to make movies. Brothers Grimm and fairy tales were just what you read when you were a child. That was it. That was the main reading. And there also was a radio show called Let's Pretend that was on radio, which again did fairy tales. And the world was always extraordinary to me. I always loved, I think this is partly this combination of being a cartoonist, because fairy tales are about different scales. So you have giants, you've got dwarves, you've got princesses, you've got castles, everything is written very large. And once your mind starts going into those worlds, I find I can't escape. So even when I'm making a modern day film, I'm putting it almost into a fairy tale form, because I love the form. I love it. And I think the good fairy tales are the ones that are based on old stories, old myths. So they're really ancient. They're primal. They're the things that have created humanity as it is. So I think, to me, they've always had a strong impact. And I've never been able to explain a lot of the stories. And the morality is even very strange in a lot of them. But it's about real things.
Sometimes they're very dark also.
But I love dark things. I think it's just dealing with the things that I'm frightened of, and I don't want to run from those. I want to deal with them. I think a lot of filmmakers, especially people who make horror films, are really gentle people who are frightened of things. So by doing it on a big screen, it's a kind of catharsis, and you get rid of your fears. I can't do horror films. I'm too frightened.
Corporations that pretty much they own everything.
I mean, luckily, when I was in university, what I ended up studying was political science. And we all knew that the corporations were going to take over the world. We knew everything by then, and it all just came true. I thought during the 60s and the early 70s, they thought we had held it back because small is beautiful. It didn't happen. They took over the world. And most people were very happy for the last 20 years because you got 300 different kinds of shoes you could wear. You've got 900 toilet papers. It's all there. People went to work for corporations because they kind of had a guaranteed life. They didn't have to take responsibility. They didn't have to think. And now we're paying for that. I mean, Brazil, I know people keep saying, oh, it was so ahead of its time. How did you know the world would be like that? Well, the world was like that then, except people weren't paying attention. Now they have to pay attention. It's a bit late, though.
Yeah, that's good. You guys had when you were
The great thing about Python was that it was 6 people who all agreed to work together. Nobody forced us. We chose each other. That's the beginning. We were at the BBC at a time when it was very laissez-faire, and once they said yes to a program, it went. And we weren't trying to reach a large audience. We just tried to make each other laugh. Very simple. So those are simple things. And out of that came something that obviously worked. My position was slightly different because I was doing the cartoons and because I was an American, and they spoke English much better than I did. And I had a lot of freedom within that because what I did, I just turned up with the material. But the important thing about the group is we didn't agree on a lot of things. We fought all the time. And there were really strong tensions within the group, which is very good, but we weren't fighting about personalities. We were fighting about the material. And that was, if we found it funny and we believed in it, that went in. Now, we were wrong a lot of the times, but most of the times we were right, I think. And that's a very rare experience to be in a thing, and to be on television where you're reaching millions of people. We just happened to be the right people at the right time, at the right place, I think is what it was. It became more complicated when we made Holy Grail because Terry Jones and I directed it. And before the television shows, we had another director directing who we would push around, but now we were doing it, and that created tensions that were new in the group. And that's why I never directed again for the group, because I knew what I wanted to do, and you can't do that in the group. The group is much more, everybody has to work together. And I was, at that point, too busy trying to find out who I was as an individual to continue working comfortably like that. But it was great as a group. We just laughed a lot. And we always felt we were doing interesting work or dangerous work or exciting work. And those are good things. We were never being careful. What is it about? I don't know what it's about. It's just silly. I mean, I think with Python, we went from incredibly intelligent to incredibly stupid stuff, all at one time, yeah. I think Holy Grail is interesting because it, in some ways, is about what I was talking about earlier, about Harvey Kurtzman's influence, because Terry Jones and I felt we've got to make this real. We've got to make it feel real, even though people are going around like this. But the world is real, and there's shit everywhere, and it looks as good as a Pasolini or a Bergman film. And that was our approach. You can't do comedy in the way comedy had normally been done up to that point, which was just everything was lit not beautifully, lit brightly. Everything was not very good. We tried to create a real world that you believed in, and then within that world you could do very silly and wonderful things.
Your collaboration?
Well, 3 years ago, it actually must have been almost 4 now, Gail and Javier run the festival, came to London, and they were looking for people to get involved in a new festival. And I always get excited about new things because there's hope with new things. And they asked me to be a patron, and John Hurt and I were patrons of it. And I thought, this is great. And I'd never been to Ibiza, so I thought, perfect. New film festival, new island. This is exciting, and I love all that. So I just jumped in. It's as simple as that. I have no responsibility. That's the point of it. Everybody else has to work hard. I am irresponsible. That's my job. Look, what kind of films do people get to see here? Hollywood films mainly, probably Spanish films. That's it. And there's a whole world of movie making out there. And so here's a chance for people to see films they wouldn't. I mean, that's why festivals really are so important. I mean, they are the alternative distribution way of seeing films, because every country is so limited in its little world, and the only country that's doing well everywhere is America. I mean, and I think I love festivals because I don't know half the names of the people that are making films. And, you know, within their own countries, they're probably huge stars. I don't know until you get to a festival and then you realize, oh, that's fantastic work. And never knew. No, I don't watch movies very often because I'm mainly disappointed now with movies. There are not that many that excite me. I mean, I'm still stuck. I think like everybody, you know, the movies that really affect you hit you at different times in your life. There's specific moments in your life. As a kid, you know, I loved Walt Disney cartoons and Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis movies. That's what I liked. And then somewhere around 17 or 18, I discovered foreign movies: Bergman, Buñuel, Fellini, Kurosawa, and like a whole new world. And I hated American films. Couldn't watch any of them because I was in this other world. And then, you know, later on, you find something else, and it's the worst thing about getting old is that I keep seeing movies, new movies that I've seen before, or I think I've seen before, because there's nothing new in them, and that's why. I mean, I like people. I suppose I like the Mexicans. They were good, you know, Alfonso and Guillermo. They were fantastic because there was an energy there, and Mireas in City of God got me excited. I thought, wow. Lives of Others last year, fantastic. So, oh, these are the ones that I'm seeing something I haven't seen before. But most of the films that I get a chance to see, which are usually the Academy DVDs, it's the same old film. Then I go to watch something the other night with my wife, and all the trailers were exactly the same film. Everyone was exactly the same rhythm, the same shots. What are we doing here? That's the job of a filmmaker, to take people into another world. I mean, if we keep taking people back into the same world where people run in slow motion from explosions, what kind of world is that? I mean, write a script with just words and not really pictures in mind, and then I start gathering paintings, things, photographs, things that interest me, find locations, and then if I'm doing my own storyboards, that's a process that really gets interesting. Is as I'm drawing it, the scene changes. It's because I don't even look at the script when I'm drawing the storyboards because I know what I'm trying to do, and I forget about the words. And so there's no one thing. Anything that it's almost like I've created a pattern. Okay, now anything that interests me about that pattern, I start pulling in, and eventually there's a form. I mean, I usually talk about specific artists. I mean, there was, on this one, and on the Imaginarium Dr. Parnassus, there was a guy named Odd Nudrum, who's a Scandinavian painter. And there's only one moment that looks like anything in any of his paintings, but that's where we have a starting point visually. And Maxfield Parrish is another one that was a starting point. And you put these things together, it's not coherent. It's very eclectic, the way I work. I pull things in, and then try to squish them together into something that makes sense. They keep telling me I'm a good director with actors. I never thought I was. At the beginning, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how. But yeah, I put myself in their place. Each of the characters in the film, I hope I know who they are inside. And I just know that actors need support. It's a very dangerous sort of job. You're naked if you're a good actor. You go out there and you hope you're working with a director who you can trust. And I found when I did Brazil, it was interesting. Ian Holm, who plays Mr. Kurtzman, is a very precise actor. He's just fantastic. Now, I'd worked with him in Time Bandits as Napoleon, and I had always thought he was probably a good comic actor, even though nobody had seen him in films as a comic actor. And I thought, I don't know why, I just felt it instinctively. And we worked on that and had a great time, and it was a good relationship. And the end result is fantastic. So when we came to doing Brazil, he trusted me that I wouldn't put anything on the screen that was going to embarrass him. And so he took huge chances, and the other actors who had worked with him before, people who knew him, couldn't believe what he was doing because some of the things he did just didn't work, but he was brave in doing it. So I try to create this playground and put a fence around it and make it safe for the actors to play in. And that's what we do. We're paid to play. And if they play well, they usually surprise the audience. If they play just because they're getting a lot of money and they're worried about their fan base, you're going to get the same performance every time. So, and I love casting actors against type too. You know, Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys. I mean, and Brad Pitt. You just pull them. You could actually put them on the opposite thing and it'd be more normal. But doing it that way, oh, and something surprising happened. I like that. I like taking chances.
No, that's great.
he recreates the world all the time. He's wrong most of the time, but each time he sets out down on his little journey, and the world isn't a bunch of sheep, it's suddenly a great army battling. Fantastic, and he goes in there, and of course, it's a bunch of sheep. That's what I do every time I make a film. I recreate a world, make it what I think is now a good version of the world out there, and then afterwards I discover it now didn't quite work. So, and that madness, that determination to stop the world being limited by what, quote, is called reality. I love that. And yeah, and once you get involved with Quixote, you've got to go all the way. You can't die not being as mad as Quixote was, at least one more time. One of the questions people say, oh, can you give us some really fun stories from the shoot? And I can never remember the fun stories. I can only remember the things that didn't work right. I remember the negative things is what I remember. I barely remember the great moments and the funny moments and the joyous moments. It's just the things that didn't work, that were awful. And maybe it's just you end up, those things become little scars, little pieces of metal stuck in you somewhere, and you can always scratch them, you know where they are. And all the other bits, which is what's the wondrousness of everything, I don't remember. I don't remember anything. And it's getting worse. And all my friends are dying, and they're basically in my memory, because every time I get together with a friend, we start talking about things that I've forgotten, and each one of those dies. So by the end, I'll have no memory. It's fantastic.
Well, you have your films.
That's my memory. That's about it.